It's happening. It is finally happening. Thanks, phone. We are going to be doing the giant unboxing of everything Marvel United. A couple weeks ago I played Marvel United. This week I'm unboxing the Wave 2 of Marvel United. So Wave 1 was that base game that you can already get at Walmart, places like that, Target. Now I have a whole lot more to unbox. 7 good-sized boxes plus a couple smaller ones for exclusive characters that you got depending on your backer level. So we're going to have a busy evening ahead, and I guess I should introduce myself. I am Petter. I run Malts and Meeples as well as Nerdologists.com and a 10-minute Marvel podcast. So definitely some of the reason why, I'm really excited for this game. Let's first, before anything else, talk about the beer that I'm having. This is Size 7 by Steel Toe Brewing out of St. Louis Park, Minnesota. So probably, I would think it'd probably take me 20 minutes to get there from my place. And this is one of their flagship beers and one of the first ones that I had from them. Size 7. Oh yeah. That is good. So this is an IPA at 7%, 77 IBUs. So IBUs are international bitterness units. And basically it's going to tell you how bitter a beer is going to be. And IPAs and stuff like that tend to be fairly bitter, mainly because hops are a preservative. So IPA, which stands for India Pale Ale, was a way for England to send beer to the colonists over in India. By making it really hoppy, it would not go bad on the voyage. And then some of us really just like bitter beer, so continuing to drink IPAs this day, even though certainly not needed for the preservation of the beer. We'll set that off to the side. And then let me flip over and we will dive in. So I have 6 boxes that are about this size with different expansions, plus 1 for all the Kickstarter exclusive characters. Just to run over a few things with this game, this is a cooperative game where you play as the heroes taking on the challenge of the villains. The base game has fairly vanilla play of fighting the Red Skull right out of the box, and each of these expansions is supposed to add something more with the villains or the heroes, something that makes them a little more interesting. Not that I don't find the base game interesting. I like that one a lot, but I can see that it would have a limited shelf life without some more characters and things like that. So this is the Tales of Asgard expansion. Let me use my professional knife here to get this open. And actually, before I do that, I want to quickly show the other box covers here. So we have Asgard, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, Enter the Spider-Verse, Infinity Gauntlet, and the Sinister Six. So the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to be standing up here for a second. This game is all about seeing the minis. Wrong way. Should I had a... We're going to zoom in nice and tight here. Okay. Because I want to show these guys off to you. So, I guess we're starting with the Sinister Six instead. We have a rule sheet. We have this board. Mysterio, Kraven, Sandman, Electro, Vulture, and Doc Ock. Now, I will say, they have pretty nice inserts for all of these. So, Kraven, Vulture, and Doc Ock. Electro, Mysterio, and Sandman. Let me see if this light will come on so that we get a little bit better light. Over here, that one flickers from time to time, so I may turn it off again if it starts doing that. And then we have a whole bunch of cards. And this weak spot, I think, is a new mechanic from the base game. So something that adds to the game. But that's box 1. That had 6 minis in it. The base game box has 10. So we're at 16 minis. And we're going to move on to the Infinity Gauntlet, which I know some people have been complaining about the free fun upgrade that's in this, but I'm excited to see it. We have another rule book. We have a whole bunch of locations, which might seem familiar from Avengers MCU. And particular Infinity War and Endgame. Really, mainly Infinity War and Endgame. Titan. Avengers Mansion. We have a villain tracker board, which isn't really needed for anything other than they wanted to theme it. We have Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, which Ebony Maw and Proxima Midnight are two great names. And then the third Thanos henchman is just called Black Dwarf. And of course, Thanos himself. Again, nice container. And people are complaining about this, and honestly, I can see why. It's thin plastic material. That fits. I'm not going to put these. Maybe I can get these in the right order. So that looks really cool like that. This is definitely a toy that you play with kids with this. It will get broken, but you really don't need it for the game. This is just something to look cool. Now I have to get the gems back where they belong. And we have cards as well. I'm not going to show those off just because cards are cards, and I got other cool things to show off. Like Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, and Black Dwarf. But, of course, there's more. The main villain of Phase 1 through 3. The Mad Titan himself, Thanos. They do such a nice job on these sculpts. I don't know if it shows. I hope it shows well on the stream. But these are really nice sculpts. Really fun poses. Like, everybody is in a dynamic pose. They're doing something. That is nice. That's so Studio Aniston said they just sleeved the Spider-Verse box and ran out of sleeves, but exactly when they finished the Spider-Verse box. And I'll open Spider-Verse next because it was on the top of the pile. I can say, from my experience playing Magic, it never happens where it lines up perfectly. I had so many random, like, 4 sleeves of this color, 20 of another, and just like, yeah. It made me wonder why I was sleeving stuff, but then I remembered it was because I was cheap and I bought old cards that were dinged on the back instead of buying really expensive ones. So the rule book for this one is just a page. But there are some new rules. There are some new tokens. Got a cell phone here. And identity badge, looks like. And all our locations. The Brooklyn Bridge. Daily Bugle. With a nice little Parker. Osborne Laboratories. Oscorp. Queens. And Midtown High School. We have our Green Goblin. Yeah, Steve Lanniston was just saying that sleeves for this game are nice because this is a fairly thin cardstock, and I could see maybe getting like, what do they call them? Like the penny sleeves, the clear, just clear on both sides sleeves to sleeve these up. Especially since it is a family weight game and Steve Lanniston has a toddler, I have a toddler, and they're not trustworthy. So we have our different Spider-Man. We have Spider-Man, Ghost Spider, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and of course the most important, Spider-Ham. Yeah, so that is yet another set of heroes, and yeah, almost every Spider-Man seems to be shooting web, but honestly, if I was Spider-Man, I would shoot web as well. Ooh. Almost put that away without the nice lid on it. So, I have 3 more of the small expansion boxes going to Guardians of the Galaxy next. Plus, then the Kickstarter exclusive stuff that I got as well. So, when I busted out Marvel United for the stream a few weeks ago, it was because, my goodness, that is obnoxiously loud. Marvel United X-Men is coming up, and let me switch over. On the Dice Tower Summer Spectacular, they played a game and a half, I'll say, of Marvel United X-Men. And one of the new features is that the villains can now be controlled by a person. So it can be a 1 versus all game. Instead of just flipping a random card off of the top, you're now going to be able to, somebody has a hand of 3 cards and they play 1 each turn. And it sounds like that is backwards compatible to most of these villains. I think there are some that it won't work, they were saying, but for the most part, it gives the game another mode of play and ups the challenge level to the point where the heroes get extra things, such as punches or movement, because you need the tokens to balance out the game. But let me flip back and have another sip of this beer. Alright, now we're back. So the new things here are going to be those KO cards. They have challenge cards as well. Nice little KO tokens. Yeah, for the card stock being thin, especially like on the cards, but then also like these locations are quite thin pieces of cardboard, which I'm fine with since you really don't move them around. But the punchboard tokens are really nice and thick. We have the Milano, Nowhere, Handar, Morag, the Collector's Museum, and Kiln. So this adds in, I mean, you can play with anybody on these locations, and we're adding a number of locations to each box, which means that there is a ton of different varieties. Like, I don't even want to kind of try and calculate that math about how many different combinations there are, because that seems like it'd be insanely high. We have Ronin card there, and Ronin himself. Gamora, Groot, Star-Lord. We'll slide Ronin over for the one that everybody really cares about seeing anyways, the Murder Raccoon. Really, most of us are here to see that Murder Raccoon. In fact, on Friday, I was going to say tomorrow, but tomorrow is not Friday. On Friday, Marvel Champions is coming out with the Galaxy's Most Wanted, and that is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy themed with the two characters in that box, plus there are villains, but the two characters are going to be Groot and Rocket, which I'm excited for. And then we're going to start getting a whole bunch of Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, which is going to be cool. Now, let's dive into Black Panther. So, one funny thing about this game is, like, with every expansion having its own box, that takes up a lot of shelf space. And while the boxes look awesome, and there's open space in them, but you don't really want to throw it away because of all of the artwork. Yeah, that would be fun. There's Studio Aniston to have Squirrel Girl, Rocket, Howard, and Spider-Ham all team up. You could swap out Squirrel Girl with Beta Ray Bill, and that would look more animal like. We have some new tokens here. So we have the Golden City, the Great Mound, Jabari Village, Royal Palace, Shuri's Lab, and Warrior Falls. With Killmonger as our bad guy. We have here. Then Black Panther, Shuri, and Bucky. Which was a little bit odd that Bucky is the third one in there, but I'm glad that we got a Bucky, so it works for me. So now we are down to, for the small box of stuff, Tales of Asgard. Mistrust tokens are the new things here. And there can be a trader challenge, I'm assuming with Loki in there somehow. So that's going to be fun to check out. Yeah, that is true. Bucky is in Wakanda for a decent chunk of time in the MCU. So for a lot of people who know the comics more through that and the superhero world of Marvel through that, it makes sense that he'd be with that group. But as somebody who's read a lot of comics, for me it's just like, well, I guess that's a spot to stick him. We have Heimdall's Observatory, Odin's Bolt, Bifrost, where is that, one or two? Just one. Asgardian Palace, the Throne Room, and Valhalla. With Loki as our bad guy. We have Thor. Looks pretty chunky. Valkyrie. Korg. And Beta Ray Bill. He also is like a version of Thor, but a horse. So a little bit of random Marvel trivia while I get this put away and pull out the next box. So Korg's friend Meek in the comics is actually kind of a bad guy, and as part of the Planet Hulk storyline, like, is the one who's pushing Hulk to kill more, and then in World War Hulk, where Hulk comes back to Earth with his team of elites, then Meek also pushes and for Hulk to kill more, and it turns out that the reason Hulk comes back to Earth is the ship that he was on, or that had taken him to the planet, Planet Hulk, explodes, and they think it's sabotage and something that the Avengers or the Illuminati put in, but it was in fact Meek who caused that to happen so that Hulk wouldn't settle down. So we have a big box of stuff here. That's how thick that box is. But before I dive into that, there are 2 characters that will go in that box, but not everybody got them. So Yondu and Adam Warlock. Let's bust into these 2 characters. Maybe because I want to pull them out, because as nice as that box is, there's room for him in the giant box, so I'm going to be getting rid of that. We have Yondu and his arrow. And I've heard that this one is a bit potentially game breaking, like the character I'm pulling out right now, Adam Warlock, is potentially a step better than a lot of the other characters. But that makes sense in terms of who he is as a character in the Marvel Comics, comics to this point. Though we have seen, I believe it was in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, there was this golden cocoon type thing, and that would likely be Adam Warlock. Just haven't had him show up yet. So I'm going to set these 2 aside, and I'll get them into their giant box coming up here. This might take a bit. Not to unwrap, but to show off everything. So that's just minis. There we have, below that, some tokens. And for all the additional bad guys here, Baron Zemo, who you can currently see, will be able to see in this upcoming week's episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Bullseye, Carnage, Corvus Glaive, Dormammu, Hela, Kang, who will be in Ant-Man 3, Kingpin, MODOK, a animated show coming to, I want to say, Hulu. MODOK will be voiced by Patton Oswalt, Rhino, and Venom. So that's the bottom half of that whole thing. let's get to the top half, because there's a lot to check out. Yondu and Adam Warlock dropped in. Start showing him off. Squirrel Girl, Doctor Strange, Vision, and we'll get 2 more in this shot. Scarlet Witch and Pietro. Do a side shot of Squirrel Girl too. Show off that nice tail. We have Okoye. She was the bonus for the Black Panther one, which it feels more like Bucky should have been the bonus character and Okoye should have been the one in there. We have Hawkeye, War Machine, Falcon, Nick Fury, those are some nice wings. Ms. Marvel has a show coming up. Now, I'll just put her back because we're on to the villains. Corvus Glaive. Ugh, come on. MODOK. Kingpin. Bullseye. My goodness. Rhino. Helmut Zemo. Kang the Conqueror. Carnage. And then we have 3 more villains. Venom, who looks insane. Hela, or Hell, as it is in the comics. And Dormammu. So that's the first of the 2 trays. We now have a whole nother one to go through here. All heroes. Iron Fist. Elektra, though fairly often she's a bad guy. Daredevil. Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Punisher, Mockingbird, Spider-Woman, also a bad guy at times. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi's movie was moved to September because of Black Widow being pushed back to its slot. And Spider-Man 2099. We have good guy Venom, Black Cat, America Chavez, who is going to be in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, who's getting his own show, Blade, Ghost Rider, not, if I remember correctly, the Johnny Blaze version, Nova, and Nebula. Yeah, Studio Anderson, there are so incredibly many different heroes. I'm almost done with them. Mantis, Drax, and Howard the Duck. Let me swap over, because that is everything. So, if I'm reading... Oh, not everybody's sitting in there quite right. Blade. If I'm reading this right, with all these heroes, there are, and villains, there are 86 different minis for this. So it was 85 at the end of the campaign. And then they gave us Venom as both, or as a villain as well as a hero. So glad I put that in upside down. I will deal with that later. And I'm glad to hear that Howard the Duck can almost one-shot any villain. I'm not sure that I'd consider him to be one of the most powerful characters, but it seems appropriate for the weird world that he comes from. But, I mean, that's a lot of stuff. That was probably 35 minutes or so of just going through stuff and showing off minis. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of cards. And so many boxes. I have to figure out how and where I'm going to store this. But that's going to be exciting. And I'm really excited to play some of these. Next Wednesday, probably, I'm going to be playing one of the different setups, probably Asgard, and just see how a different one works. Be able to show off a little bit more before we get to the Marvel United X-Men, which I'm super excited for as well because I love Gambit. But with that, I'm going to wrap up. I just want to thank you all for watching. Thank you to everyone who watched along with me and is checking out this later as well. If you enjoyed this content, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, ring the notification bell so you know when I go live. It should generally be every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And let's see, what else is there? I know there's always more of a spiel. So I have a Patreon set up if you want to help support this channel, as well as it's set up for the Nerdologist website and the 10 Minute Marvel podcast. You can find it at patreon.com/nerdologists. The link is in the description below. I can now say the classic phrases that every YouTuber says. All the social media, stuff like that is down there. If you want to chat, drop me a line on Twitter, or there's other YouTube communities that I'm involved in and on their Discords. So definitely check out the stuff that Gloryhound does. That's where I know Studio Lanniston from. And check out the videos on that channel. They do tons of great content, tons of playthroughs. And they also have a Discord, so it's a fun spot to chat about board games, and yeah, definitely high quality content creators there. So give them a watch as well. But with that, bottoms up.